turn off your camera or mute yourself. Okay, we're live. We're not streaming live, but we are being recorded. So do you want me to open it, Luke, or do you want to start?
Yeah, why don't you open it to say what it is, and then
Sure.
I'll
Sure. Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Ready to Wear Initiative, at least as some of us call it. We have been Luke and some others have been working on various aspects of this for. Well, I just looked, and the initiatives were officially approved at the beginning of June, end of May of last year. So it's been about 9 months. And I think I've gotten the sense from Luke that he's kind of trying to figure out what the endpoint is, and how to wrap up the work we're doing, and maybe if possible, or if need be, set any final goals. And so this meeting is a little bit to review what we've done so far, but also think about what the endpoint for this initiative is. If I understand correctly, Luke, how does that sound?
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. I can I can talk about, I think, 4 different things. So imagine,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, beautifully formatted PowerPoint slides with the 4 following topics. One being just generally what it feels like to be involved in an initiative, uh, which will involve some suggestions and notes and comments along that line. Uh, one's going to be a super brief overview of what we wanted to of what I was envisioning we would try to achieve with this particular initiative. Um, then there's going to be a little discussion about uh, what we kind of discovered and created and tuned as part of this initiative, and then kind of a key part, and really which should probably be considered a initiative deliverable, is what things what other aspects we've discovered need to be done that aren't being done in the initiative, like out of scope things. But I think one of the key findings is sort of spinning off like other things that need doing and that need to be wrapped around. All right, so why don't I share my screen just for that,
Sure.
and
Hopefully
I
you
will
have.
share.
Yep, you
I,
should have that ability.
oh, there it is. All right, I click at that button. I'll share the screen we're looking at. I will bring the Google Doc.
Luke, quick side point. Is that your backdrop screen? That content map?
Yeah.
It confused me for a second because I just found that issue in the issue queue like a couple of days ago and was looking at that. And
Yeah,
I
well,
Go ahead.
why not here? Let's think this out. Yeah. This just to sort of remind me of the marketing stuff that I have interest in, and I don't you know there's no rhyme or reason to it that I'm able to use, but it just reminds me that stuff is all still out there.
Right. I
And
want to revisit that. I want to revisit that later.
yeah. All right. So I won't read this out. This is copied from the forum post in forums.backdropcms.org. Uh, the initiatives topic. Uh, this is in there. Um, and the vision was based on the idea, and really it's a scratch I was trying to. It's an itch I was trying to scratch since the early days, my very first introduction to Drupal, 5 years before the Backdrop project started, which is that um, creating a reasonable looking site seemed impossibly hard. That you could do all sorts of stuff with content and functionality within Drupal and its children Backdrop, but presenting it to the world, always it always looked like a student project, and it felt like there need to be better skins. Um, so my proposal was that we find a few kind of ready to go themes, um, and and package them up and have them easily accessible to new users. So I'm going to skip over that to the small bit that I added. um, and Tim's still adding too.
Oh, I actually, this was notes.
Yeah. All right. Um,
This part is all stuff I just typed now. I'm typing notes. Oops. Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
This was
that's good.
the thing. And so one of the pieces that you know a lot of this stuff sort of seems obvious in retrospect, but it took a while of rustling around to figure out is that what we call themes now in Backdrop has been transformed notably from what themes were in Drupal. And you know, everyone involved with the Backdrop project knows about the layout manager and how um, a lot of the things you used to have to do inside of Drupal themes, you now do in a much more friendly, approachable, uh, and sort of modern in my mind way with Layout Manager, in terms of deciding where things go on the page and what that looks like. Uh, w- what it took me a while to really grasp based on that, though, is that my dream of a kind of ready to go look that comes out of the box uh, isn't possible without layouts. That you really need a layout out of the box in order for things to make sense. So that's ultimately probably the biggest carve out of the ready to wear project is that is it's not just themes. So we do need, in fact, as I had initially projected, a library of finished, ready to go themes. But because of Backdrop's very reasonable factoring, we also need um, ready to go layouts. And layouts kind of don't mean anything without content. So really, one of the things that ends up is end up kind of proposing that 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 once we have theme slash skins defined, that next up should be sample content and layouts, things so that and uh, notably as a little project, I checked out various other things. Savasni, who I thought, did I see him before on the call or
He
no?
wasn't in this call, no.
Oh, all
Well,
right,
can I just offer this clarification because we're
absolutely,
using the term layouts, um, which is correct, but people confuse that with layout templates, right? So
yeah,
just to draw that distinction, a layout template is what we have in core, boxed in, whatever. Those are layout templates. As you were just saying, a layout actually includes placement of blocks, and that's what you're referring to, right?
I think.
I think so too. We talked about this
uh,
a little bit the other day. Yeah.
yeah,
You
it
actually
certainly it's
want some assumptions about how that layout is used, not or that template, that layout template. So we're not
yeah.
just talking about layout templates. We're talking about specific layouts.
Yeah, one of the things that we've um, found ourselves referencing during this whole initiative is documentation. Is that there's definitely pieces that a beginner needs to use that fall heavily in the realm of documentation, and in particular, kind of easily overlooked within Backdrop are the two um, facilities that were invented for Backdrop that weren't part of Drupal, or at least not part of Drupal 7. The layout manager and also configuration management is also sort of confusing topic to beginners. But I'm scope creeping the initial already scope creeped piece to it. Uh, so along the line, we actually did some other pieces that solved some of the desires of the Reddit Aware project, in that the themes the themes catalog on on backdropcms.org has been kind of incrementally improved and made friendlier. You know, has uh, larger screen caps and more information, and has been moving forward in terms of making what themes we have more accessible and usable. Um, so to kind of get to the let's see, I'm looking at my bullets. So Drupal themes have been transformed into layouts and themes. Site builders need to be, all right, we talked about that. Um, and so the next initiative that I'm going to sort of propose spinning off that's related to this is sample start out, sample starter uh, pieces of content, and in particular, the Joomla project has a pretty a, a pretty compelling example case of this, where they've got 4 different sample sites that roll out of the box when you install, and you can choose any of them, and you start out with something that you can use. Uh, you know, Drupal not too long ago added a sample site, the Umani recipe site, which is pretty good. But that's getting. Oh, Tim has pasted into the notes the the 3 builds of the sample Joomla sites that I installed on my own little uh, server platform. Um, well, that's I've train wrecked through the closest thing I have to like a prepared presentation here. Uh, Questions, thoughts, comments? What do you got?
I'm I'm gonna just add a couple of things, Luke, because you skimmed over it. But can you scoot up to the top of the agenda?
Hmm.
You mentioned some of the things that have been accomplished, and like you mentioned, a few themes. All we've had 5 new themes there that have come out since in the last 9 months, which is certainly probably more than came out in the last 3 years. So, and I think those were at least inspired by this initiative, even if they weren't like we didn't directly direct them or anything.
Yeah.
I think all of this talk about ready to wear and creating new themes inspired Indigo Zella and Olaf to release these. Um, we did also, you started this process of porting the boot swatch collection, which you didn't quite get functional, but what we did do is at least get the boot swatch collection functional in the Bootstrap Lite. I mean, your idea, it's the boot swatch is a little bit buried in Bootstrap Lite and hard to find, and you were hoping to make it easier to get to. And
Yeah.
I think that's still a good goal, um, but at least it's functional in Bootstrap Lite where it wasn't. So,
Oh yeah. Hugely important, and combined with just a little bit of documentation
mhm.
can get there. So that provides a perfectly valid like 3-line explainer that an intro script can say. It's like, look, if you want to bring up your site and don't consider yourself a designer or a CSS expert, which is sort of the idea. You can fire up Bootstrap and work your way through the tabs to get to the boot swatch examples, and then you've got 15 or 20 fairly nice things. Oh wait, I guess actually one other thing that came up and it's kind of boiled as sort of like a not quite there project that's worth keeping an eye on is Color Picker, and sort of the semi ability of Color Picker to do a lot of these things. There's presets in Color Picker and recipes, but it's not, they're not fully baked, but they seem bakeable.
I think you're referring to the color module, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What I say? I use the wrong
color
words.
picker.
Yeah. Okay.
Color picker, which is describes it, but it's not the official
All right.
name.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and several of the themes use the color module, which, I think the goal here, right, is to help people be able to customize and make a site attractive without having to write CSS. And the color module within some of these themes is really helpful. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean the idea is that it should be possible to create a website without having to dig into a text editor. Like it's not that's a bad thing, but I think that having that as a requirement to have a site up eliminates 90% or more of the potential market.
well, I feel like we've come quite a ways in the last 9 months towards that, and which I think is a good goal. And I definitely agree that the existing with the existing themes and tools that we had 9 months ago, I think it was hard to make a sort of professional looking site without actually sub theming or hacking an existing theme. Personally, I think that Basis and Core has too many little bugs in it. I mean, it's basically sound, but it's got a number of little bugs in it that that you have to kind of get in and sub theme around. And some of the other themes, and that's true of actually most of the, or was true of most of the themes. We have a few now that are just sort of out of the box ready for simple blog sites. These are not sites that a big company would use, or themes that a big company would use. Like Pellerine is, I think, a great simple blog site if you're doing a personal blog or a personal site, but it's not anything a business is likely to use. But that's at least a step forward. One of the other developments of this initiative was getting the Switch theme. Joseph did the work on that, but the Switch theme module of it working, which is really useful in terms of being able to sort of demo and test themes. It's probably not
Yeah,
everything we wish for yet, but it's a step in the direction.
and I made some uh, buggy modifications to it, which which might still end up seeing the light of day. Just a different interface for Switch theme.
Do you want to look at your site or not? The ready to wear site?
No, no.
Nope.
I haven't looked at it in a week, so I have no idea what I'd see if I went there.
Well, I think you were kind of mid reorganizing it. So,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So what should we conclude here? What's our next step? So the reason this meeting was called was your idea, Tim, to try to uh, get help for me to how to take this home. So I've stumbled within sight of the finish line, but I'm not quite exactly sure how to crawl across the finish line. What do we still need to do?
So I know Robert's watching and said he wasn't going to talk, but I just want to invite him that he's welcome to if he wants, or Martin. Um, we, I mean, so one of Luke, I sometimes think sort of gets frustrated and undervalues what we did accomplish this year because he's got big goals and big ideas, which we haven't been able to implement. But as I go back and look at your initial statement, you said an initial MVP. I propose that we find or construct 3 or 4 ready to go themes and make them available. Um, And I think under the subpoints there, you kind of focus on like providing some documentation and making that easy to evaluate themes. And I mean, I do think that like from that initial set of goals that you set, we did a lot of that. And um, so, it would be totally appropriate to say like we've
Here,
achieved
here,
our
here they are. We wanted to establish a list of themes, and there it is.
right. Um, I think if I read our goals really literally, um, I would think like getting the ready to wear site in a more usable state would be helpful in sort of saying what we achieved all of those goals. But I don't know if it's necessary. I mean, if you feel like that's too much work, or if it's not, maybe we've decided that ready to wear theme isn't the way to go. Maybe there's a better way to help people select. Maybe just better screenshots. But
Maybe I mean it did that actually is the last few months have been spent kind of devolved into trying to turn the Redditware site into a tool and into a working thing that lets you explore a set of sites. And it kind of it might have actually been more ambitious than I thought it was when I approached it, but like it almost works.
right.
I've got a couple of thoughts on um, how you might like to help people who are looking for a ready to wear site perhaps sort of on the theme selection. So whether that's uh, in your new Bootstrap installation where you look at install new themes, or on the on, sorry, but the backdrop installation where you're looking at new themes, or on the backdrop project site where you're looking at the list of themes, whether having some categorization that would say uh, this is uh, this is deemed ready to wear, and that you can deploy this without so people can quite easily search and be able to find the ones that they can do without any coding straight away.
Yeah. Do I mean one of the almost obvious things to have is do we have a switch on on the themes page that you can search for uh r- you know no it's funny it kind of came like scrolling back a decade when I first got into Drupal. When I went to look for themes, they said, here you go to look at Drupal/themes, and there's a checkbox you could have for starter themes that required building on top of it. And I always wanted the negative of that. I wanted to show me
Mm,
everything that's not a starter theme.
mm,
Right.
uh,
yeah.
Well,
and
yeah. And the Drupal term starter theme means something different than I think we think, right?
Yeah.
Like a
well,
starter theme isn't a beginner theme. A starter
right,
theme is
yeah,
a
yeah,
is a
Yeah,
framework that you can
right,
start a new theme based on. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
It's an experts only theme, like by
Right.
by
absolutely. Yeah.
by definition. Um, and it was frustrating because the 20 most popular themes in Drupal were all starter themes.
Right.
So checking that only show me starter themes button did nothing. It showed you the same thing anyway. Like you couldn't get away from them was the whole problem. Uh,
So I
so do we have that checkbox that I want, or could we make one that says ready to go out of the box? How's that? Instead of ready, because Nate kind of hates the ready to wear name. So could we call them out of the box or
Yeah, there isn't. And there's a
uh,
couple of filters like most installed to sort by most installed title and latest release. Whether we could, how whether we just need a change request in someone to put a search filter and also be able to, when people are adding themes, just be able to tag them to say these are ready to use out the box.
Right. On that point, early on in this initiative, I think we talked a lot about having a seal of approval, like an approved. We didn't necessarily call it ready to wear theme, but these are our recommended themes for using out of the box. And I think the intention at the time was that they, themes that were pretty solid and worked without having to write your own CSS. I think we drifted a little bit away from that. We started thinking about, although it keeps coming back. It isn't like we've forgotten about it. But
Yeah.
part of what we keep thinking about is how would we do, make those decisions. But I would think that would be a really valuable thing, is if we could go through the available themes and list which ones are ready to wear. One of the things that's been happening and actually is getting some movement very recently in the issue queue for backdropcms.org is adding additional. So we don't have any filters as you're looking at the theme page. There's absolutely no, right. Yeah. There's absolutely no filters right now. The Doc Wilmont has been working on a pull request, and he's been really advocating for it lately to allow us to add a little bit more of information into the .info files for projects, not both themes. I'll post the issue in Slack or in Zulip. One of the fields that he's added, I think, is theme colors. Now, I'm a little bit skeptical on whether or not this is going to work for us, but I think it's something that WordPress provides. When you go to the WordPress, do they call them themes, or do they call them skins, or what is Word?
They call them themes.
They do. Okay. So WordPress themes, I think you can pick a color scheme on their sort page, and at least I felt like you could in the past. Maybe not.
There's actually quite a few filters, but
sure. I thought they had one. Well, they're check features. Well, custom colors. No, that's probably not. Pick a color. That means you can set your own colors, right? Yeah. I thought you could search by a color scheme. You could say I like red, and it would show you themes that highlighted red. Well, in theory, this field that Doc Wilmont wants to add to the info file would support that. But I'm a little, we have the color module, and I'm building, in a number of sites use the color module, which inherently means that they have different color schemes that you can use right out of the box. Yeah. So what would I pick for my colors?
And Boot Swatch has got quite a few different color schemes as well. So
exactly. So I'm a little bit skeptical about whether or not that particular filter is that useful. On the other hand, the idea that we could get a little bit of, adding, well, the layout doesn't apply, so that filter doesn't make sense for us in our themes.
Right.
The subject could. Certainly having an approved or unapproved, I don't know if I like necessarily the word, maybe recommended, having a recommended, this theme has been, or if it was approved for ready to wear, like you say, or approved for use out of the box. Yeah, having that filter would be
beginner friendly,
something like that. Yeah. Anyways, and so I don't know that that we have that field in the .info file right now, but I suspect that once we've gotten this current pull request through, it'll be easier to add a criteria or something that we could use for a filter.
Yeah, you know how you say I'm always too ambitious in ways, Tim. I look at WordPress's theme page, and I think it's a lot better than ours in many ways, particularly getting more things on. But that being said, I think it's terrible. I think we shouldn't aim for catching up to WordPress's page. I think we should aim for far exceeding it. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay, I thought you were telling me how you weren't too ambitious, and now you want
No,
far
no, no.
seaward.
I was agreeing with you.
Um,
All right.
so yeah, helping people find good, approved, or ready to or beginner friendly. I like that. Beginner friendly themes would be helpful, and I think that's something that's doable. And like I say, there's some work happening on it. I think the blocker on that is just deciding a process. How do we decide what a beginner friendly theme is? And maybe, I mean, to be honest, we could just like schedule a meeting like this where we sit and go through there's not that many themes. I had a spreadsheet and I wish I'll look for it later. Uh,
Can I?
my enforced, go ahead.
Yeah, just so it looks like sort of the current model for someone coming to Backdrop for the first time is download and install Backdrop, and once you have it up and running, go explore themes and see which ones you like. But what I was wondering is if there's something akin to a one-click install, where someone can browse wherever and say, that looks good. I want to install that Backdrop site and do that all at once. Is that possible, reasonable, desirable?
I think it's desirable. I think it's possible. How hard it is one of those questions that comes up.
Can you take away your or quit sharing?
Sure.
So I can. I think I would think that I would be able to first just take over the screen, but I'm not seeing how. Oh, actually, suddenly I've got a box saying, "Do you want to stop the other person's screen sharing?" It's a little late, but
too late. I've already stopped it.
Yeah. So that Robert, you're right. That is that currently, if you want to pick a theme, you're sort of limited to, well, one thing you could do is you could use, although I doubt most beginners would understand this, is you could go to that demo button on backdropcms.org and you can install themes in those demo sites. If they're on backdrop.org. Now, I doubt most people would recognize that as a possibility. So we could do a better job of making that available. The other thing, what we're looking at right now, or am I sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is that issue on supporting more information in the .info files. But so yes, then the next, what is your next choice? Well, you could install them on your own site. That's really sort of cumbersome and a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I created a spreadsheet at one point that had some information. It's gotten a little bit out of date. But what we did talk about was I'll show mine. So we've worked on two different versions of sites that in theory could be versions of something that people could use to evaluate themes. Now, naturally, I'm going to log out. Well, maybe that was a mistake, but this is, if you land on it, it's using Basis. And I threw some sample content in it. And this is, hosts have got the theme switch module going. So you can come down here and switch and try out some different themes. Now, like this one, I went and logged out, so now I can't do that. This one lets you pick different backgrounds. If you haven't looked at this theme before, you can switch to different backgrounds. And we don't have a good way for an unauthenticated user to test that feature, to try the different backgrounds. They can only try the default one. But they could switch to, what's another, Lateral's kind of a good one out of the box to test. So you can see what the Lateral theme. So this is the idea for a site like this seems to make sense and like it would be useful, but there's a number of practical limitations. Like the boot swatch, we don't have any way. Well, that's why I think Luke started to try and port the Bootswatch connection selection so that you could look at any one of them individually. Right now, you can pick Bootstrap Lite, but unless you have access to the theme settings, you can't really switch between the Bootswatch themes.
That was why.
Right. So fixing that would be helpful, but yes, you can sort of see what a Bootstrap Lite theme looks like. And we, on my side, I have a few different, my version of this, I have a few different pages that you can, again. So I don't know if something like this would be helpful. Here's Jen's theme, Pretty in Purple. To me, a site like this is helpful in that just by, like, I can notice things like this. I just turned this theme on and realized, oh, this theme wasn't really built for submenus or drop-down menus, because you can see it's buggy if you have them. I'm pretty sure Jen probably didn't envision that usage for this theme.
Mm-hmm.
But this is getting in the direction of what you're talking about, isn't it, Robert? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, just thinking about sort of easing the number of steps someone has to go through to decide, do I like this? Do I want to go further? Like if you can just in a single click say, here's what it looks like. And some of what you just described might work, is new to me. And I just haven't yet found the place on the documentation page that says, here's how you get to this. Like, we have a user guide, we have a developer guide. How about a evaluating backdrop guide that tells you how to evaluate it, how to look at different themes, and how to decide things that you want that are optional.
Yeah, I haven't heard that idea before. I like that. Yeah, well, most of what we're sharing with you, I don't think the average user would ever figure out on their own. That's the problem. It's stuff that we know as community members, sort of tricks we know.
So since I'm relatively new, I'm a good ignorant example, because there's still lots of stuff I don't know, even though I've been studying this pretty intently for 6 months.
Well, how would you or Martin, I welcome your input on this. How would you to just forget about new themes and new features, to pick amongst our existing themes for a new user? What would that look like? Any ideas? A tool, would it look like this, or would it be just better screenshots? Or
I think better screenshots is definitely it would definitely be a big improvement. I like the idea of putting more information in the info, and I was starting to think from there. You could almost like you could do with almost like a tags field, where you might put tags like beginner friendly, responsive, color changer, though all the different kind of features that you might have in a theme. I'm probably not a complete beginner in that. In Drupal, I was building sites, so I was quite comfortable with doing a sub theme and just tweaking things. But in general, I would go and try and find something that's 80% of the way there, close by just in the early days, just trying a few different themes to try and find one that I like. But I think if you had screenshots on the project pages and you enable people to have a lot more screenshots, I think that's really helpful for illustrating to people what they can do and what it'll look like with a bit more content in.
Okay.
Maybe a simple change is just multiple screenshots for each theme, rather than limiting it to one.
Right. I'm pretty sure we have a GitHub issue for that, but I have to check the status of it.
I think it was in the one that you were showing earlier.
Oh, was it? Okay. That could be. Yeah. In this one. Yes, unlimited value screenshots. And I'm pretty sure that is, yeah, so that's probably to me more valuable than the theme colors.
Yeah.
But having project tags, I don't know if that tags would allow us to do the kind of thing you talked about with like beginner friendly or not.
I don't know.
I mean, if nothing else, on backdropcms.org, there's a node already for each theme. Those,
Right.
it's a question of content, a question of putting stuff into there.
Yeah, it's like the multiple screenshots thing is an issue because technically all of this information on this page is pulled from the .info file. So we can't just go in and edit this page. Which is why, so like the maintainer for Snazzy can't just come in and edit their node to add extra screenshots. Maybe they should be able to, but I think the preferred solution is to allow that through the .info file, which is what we're moving towards.
Okay, are those nodes are automatically generated? I didn't realize that.
I think that probably
Yes.
there's a certain amount of sense there because it then keeps everything in sync, doesn't it? You don't end up with one version on the project page and another version in the downloaded documentation. So I think that's quite good.
Yes, that's the reason for it. Yes, this page, when you get if you tag a release for your theme in GitHub, this page automatically gets created. No, there's no human intervention in the creation of these pages.
Okay.
And in theory, they stay up to date. Every time you tag a new release, this page gets updated. All of the information on this page is pulled directly from the .info file, or the README. But the .info file also helps with some of the other stuff, like
titles aren't updated.
Release. Titles are not updated, huh?
Right.
Okay. Well, that could be, sure. That I could see where that might be a backdrop thing. I've never tried that, so I wasn't aware of that problem. Well, I know Luke has a busy first week on his new gig, and maybe he needs to go now. But if you have a few more minutes, how do we? Can we make any more definitive statement about bringing this to a close, or what the final product might be?
Well, I feel like the final product is in front of us. It just has to, like it's a final report that needs just a little editing.
I mean, to some extent, we can all throw ideas out, Luke, but you're kind of been leading this project, so it ultimately is. What are you going to be satisfied with?
Yeah. No, I think a report, a document that kind of I could probably re-listen to the recording of this and take notes from that and distill it into something.
Okay. Well, I think personally, I would again highlight what we have accomplished.
Yeah.
As a community, and then like what you've done, what you started to do here, which is the what's next. Like what are the things we discovered that need to happen?
Yeah, I don't think we need to do anything more. I think there are just two things of just noticing what we've done and documenting that, cataloging the projects that have been spun off that either have prototypes or even just conceptions, and then a small list of sort of unanswered questions, like things we haven't dealt with but that we've noticed. And I think those three things, and we can call it a day.
So to be clear, when you say we don't need to do anything more, what you mean is in the context of this initiative, not in the project background.
Correct.
Obviously, there's a lot of things we need to do and will continue to
Yeah.
do.
Well,
But
well, that's been the issue, and like I'm dying to do something else, and I can't do anything else as long as I'm still officially doing this. So I really want to bring this project officially to a close so that I can do something different, which could be one of those follow-on things.
To anybody who might be watching this and feeling like, oh, but there's so much more that this initiative could do. I think what that means is that we bring this phase of this initiative, or bring this initiative to a close, but that doesn't preclude a part 2 initiative with a new leader that wants to, pick up on some of the recommendations that came out of this one. So that's always a possibility. The work isn't done. It's just this initiative has sort of done what it can, right?
Yeah, and as you said near the beginning of the call, and I've said repeatedly, we've actually solved a bunch of the problems that were noticeable at the beginning.
Sure.
We've definitely moved the ball forward.
Is there well, here's what I would recommend for a process, Luke, which is that you draft up a report, and you could just take this document if you like and build from this, or you can start fresh, and then maybe just submit it to the community for comment, and then I guess you could choose to either incorporate any of those comments or to, then I guess you decide when it's finished. But I think there should at least be a chance for people to comment on it before. But that's up to you. I mean, I don't know if that's required. If you just want to report and say you're done, I think that's fine too.
Yeah.
Again, for Martin, Robert, and anybody else who might be listening, about a year ago at this time, we were talking about how to better address the bigger problems in Backdrop that don't fit into like an issue in the issue queue. And we came up with this idea of like project management committee endorsed initiatives, which would be longer term projects that tackle bigger issues. And it was the first time we did it, and we submitted we asked for recommendations for initiatives, and we picked 2, this one and the telemetry initiative. The telemetry initiative is about collecting better data about how people are using Backdrop sites to make core development decisions. And I would say that and I'm in charge of that initiative. And I would say the trajectory of both of these has been similar, where we wandered around a bit. The telemetry initiative probably has made progress, but is also floundering just a little bit. And I'm in the same position of like trying to, although we had a more clearly defined endpoint, and I think we're actually approaching it. So like, I think the telemetry initiative had the benefit of like a really precisely defined endpoint. So we'll know when we're done, and we're getting close. And then we can pick new initiatives. So, any more questions or thoughts?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thanks. I hope this was helpful. This meeting, especially for you, Luke.
It totally was. I mean, we covered it, starting from that document and just kind of, defining what the deliverable is. And I have a little outline here of what that report looks like. So I just have to find 90 minutes to actually do it.
Well, do you just want to do it and submit it, or do you want to do some sort of a feedback process?
I'll do it and then throw it out for feedback.
Okay.
All right.
And then you can do what you want with the feedback. We don't have an official committee to like approve it or anything right now, which maybe we should think about next time. Okay, sounds good. I'm going to end the share. If anybody wants to hang around for a minute and just chat, we can. So bye everybody officially for stopping the I'm going to have to stop the share in order to stop the recording.